everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. No one's going to punch you in the face in a 24-hour race, but it might feel like it in the training sometimes. One of the questions I get asked a lot is how to train for 24 hours in a day. And it's a good question. I don't think anyone's got the exact answer just yet, and it can be very individual. Does it involve super long runs? Does it involve like huge mileage? It depends. Personally, I don't think the long run needs to be massive. My longest run when running the British record was 2 hours 45 in terms of time. In the past, I've gone up to about 6 hours as the longest training run, but that will be sufficiently far out from the race itself. And with a lot of the athletes I coach, the likes of Dan Lawson, Paul Maskell, Ali Young, we won't often go further than 6 hours in a training run, and there might even be within a training race in the build-up, and it's a good distance away from the race itself. It's a chance to practice your nutrition, your pacing, your electrolytes, all this kind of stuff, so we add as much value to it as possible. But if we can get away with it, we won't really go that far in training. So what does the actual training look like? You probably want to hear about the peak weeks rather than the build-up. But generally the biggest weeks are 3, 4, 5 weeks out before a taper. In the last couple of builds, I've built up to around 120, 125 miles, which is around 200 kilometres. But that's the top end weeks. An average over the 8 to 10 week period of the perfect build, which never happens, is maybe 100, 110. Some of those are a bit lower, some of those build up to that peak I've mentioned just then. So the build up to the record in February this year, I had 4 weeks where I built up quite nicely, up to around 120 miles. And then I had a really low week where I recovered, and then I built up again for a few more weeks and tapered for the race. The main reason for this was respecting that I'd come straight from a 12-week build the year before, caught COVID, and then gone straight into the next one. So whilst on paper, the perfect build up for a race gradually builds to a nice peak volume, and you hold it for a small while. Good mixture and variety of training, nothing too fast, but focusing on sessions that have good marathon pace or steady volume in there. So not going super fast because you don't need to, but getting good aerobic work in, and then bringing it down towards a taper. We can talk about the taper in a separate video. That's how it would look like a kind of lovely little graph. I can show you what it looks like in a perfect situation, because I nearly got there with the race last December before I caught COVID 8 days out. And this is, if I can hold a graph, that might work. I don't know if this will work. And then what happened in reality when I set the record? Well, it's slightly different. There's nothing actually here, so this might not work. But that drop in the middle was just making sure that we weren't pushing too hard, given that I was coming from September the year before all the way till the end of Feb. There was either hard work or being ill, and we've covered the volume, we've covered the longest run. In the next couple of videos, I might touch a little bit on what the sessions look like. They're not complicated, but they are quite. Some of them might look scary at first until you get an idea around the paces. So I'll get into a bit more detail around that. If you've got any questions from what I've said before, pop it in the comments below, and I'll be able to answer them one by one, or maybe even in the next video. If you're a bit confused by anything, that's perfectly normal, because it's 24-hour running. It doesn't really make sense. It's quite pointless, frankly. But if you do enjoy this video, please share it with other people. You can subscribe. There's a button around somewhere. And yeah, like it like that.